What if everything you've been told about retirement is wrong? What if the real goal isn't to stop working someday, but to design a life so meaningful you'd never want to? Well, in this next episode of Category 1, I get to chat with my dear friend, Derek Coburn, who is a financial advisor with 27 plus years of experience, the USA Today bestselling author of Let's Retire Retirement, the author of Networking is Not Working, and the co-founder of Cadre, a curated community that he built with his wife, Melanie. In this episode, Derek shares how conditioning, people-pleasing, and lifelong performance patterns shaped his early identity, and how a series of major life events and a full midlife crisis had forced him to reevaluate everything. He talks about the danger of deferring joy to the future and why so many retirees return to work for connection rather than for money, and how rethinking retirement now can help you avoid regret later. You're not going to want to miss this one. Let's dive right in. I first met Derek several years ago at a Maverick event, so it's actually kind of appropriate. We're on the Category 1 branding podcast, and we met at a Maverick event. It's had the same kind of sentiment. People know who follow me know that I wrote a book, Your Brand Should Be Gay, even if you're not. So it's not like I'm hidden about me being gay. And there was an episode where we were at the Maverick event. I don't even know who remembers speaking, but it was a very funny story. And this is one of the moments I remember with you. And he was calling on someone to answer the question. And of course, like any speaker would, who's new to an audience, he's like, "Hey, what's your name?" And it was Gary. I don't know if it was Gary Nealon or whatever, but
it was two Garys. It was Gary Nealon and someone else.
And then he asked another person, "What's your name?" Gary. And it happened to be like, I think 3 Garys. And then I had a question. So I raised my hand. And before I could even say anything, before he asked, I said, "What's your name?" And you said, "Gary."
4 in a row, baby.
I mean, of all the re-jokes that I've heard, that was probably on the top of the list. So well done, man.
Amazing. I'll take it.
Well, speaking of which, so obviously I love re-words. We're going to talk a little bit about retirement. But before I do that, I want to find out, Derek, if you were to describe who you are when I first met you in one word, and the Derek who is today, what would that be? And what's the story behind that evolution?
I would say that when you first met me, this probably goes back, what do you think, 2015, 2016?
Yeah, 2015, 2016.
I was running my life based on a lot of subconscious conditioning, a lot of habits and a lot of things that had gone unchecked. To sort of keep the train going, to sort of deal with trauma from when I was younger, and was a pretty confident guy. And in hindsight, maybe didn't have as much to be confident about as I thought I did at the time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, had a lot of really great things happening in my life. I've had a lot of great things happen in my life as a result of some of this conditioning that I started leaning in, and combination of a lot of things, like my father getting dementia in 2013, me having kids and becoming a father, selling my business, COVID happening, my father passing away, me having a full-blown midlife crisis in 2022, that all led me to doing a lot of the work to sort of uncover a lot of these tendencies and realizing certain patterns. For example, like, I got really good at, because I wasn't that well liked as a kid, I got really good at figuring out what people wanted to hear in order for them to like me. And, and I built a life that looked like I had a lot of amazing friends, but I was being performative. And, and I got tired of that and realized that I had enough friends that I didn't have to keep doing this dance anymore, and that I could lean into being more of who I was unapologetically, and cultivating that practice. And, I'll give you another sort of like tidbits. I don't really feel like I knew what it was like to have a calm central nervous system until like 4 years ago. I had never really felt true peace in my body. And it's still something that doesn't come to me super naturally. I've got like, dozens of years of conditioning and addictions with the way I respond to things and show up in the world that have made it maybe harder for me than for other people. But I'm a much more calm, gentle man, I would say, than I was when you first met me. And I care a lot less about what other people think about me. It doesn't mean I don't care about them, but I'm not losing sleep over what people think
Yeah.
about me if I'm showing up as the true me and speaking my truth and being as authentic as I possibly can. And now I think the confidence is more quiet, but it's more justified as well, in terms of where I have some wisdom, where I have some experiences, where I feel like I can, help people.
Yeah, I really vibe with that. I think you and I share that a lot in common. Not so much that I wasn't liked as much, but I probably didn't really fit in, but in many different ways. I think you and I have been on a very similar journey where even my own growth and development, people have reflected that to me. I'm a bit more, I mean, I don't know, you've known me for some time too, but the same words, calm and gentle. So is the
Mm.
shift kind of like more performative? I think was the word you used. Like you were, the earlier version of you is more performative and more really just trying to please other people versus being more grounded and embodied with who you are or being unapologetic with who you are.
Yeah, for sure. I just, I mentioned to you earlier that I feel like I've been spending a lot of time the past 5 years in the not giving a fuck dojo. That doesn't mean that I don't care about people, but it just means that like, I'm not going to let people, I'm not going to let what people that are not a key person in my life. I have 10 people probably that I care deeply about what they think about me. And if all 10 of them or 5 of the 10 said, Derek, like you're showing up in a way that's not consistent with what I'm expecting of you, then I'm going to listen. But look, I think that there's nothing for me that is more correlated with freedom than not being affected by what other people think about you when you're showing up in the most authentic way possible. And I think the demographic of people who do this better than anybody else are old people, right? Like if you meet a
Yeah.
bunch of 70 and 80-year-olds, the majority of them don't really care, on a minute to minute or a day-to-day basis what people think about them or the things that they're doing. And so for me, it was like it's a be a worthwhile goal to develop the ability to not give a fuck like a 75-year-old by the time I'm 50. I feel like that's gonna produce more meaning and happiness and joy in my life.
Yeah, dude, I'm vibing with that. All right, so you started mentioning as you get older, because I do see that to be the trend, right? As you get older, as I'm noticing, the elders is like they don't really care what people think, and I think that's really the journey. I think the faster you can get to that of not really caring what other people think, I think you can just move through life and navigate through life with more freedom, like you said, more freedom and joy and fulfillment. So let's I mean, not that it's about being old, but it typically a retirement is associated with being at a certain age. Let me just set the foundation for people who are new to you, but what was the moment that you realized that the whole concept of retirement might be broken?
Yeah, so I started my career as a financial advisor in 1998, and I was just kind of having the typical conversations that all financial advisors were having and still having to this day, which were automatically opting people into this idea where
Yeah.
financial advisors and online calculators and articles that you see are not saying, "Do you want to retire?" They're saying, "What age do you want to retire?" Everybody is asked to pick an age, and I was noticing people that were older that were retired and they weren't really happy or they were going back to work. And then I think I read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss, where he introduced the concept of mini retirements and kind of spreading out whatever it is you're saving up to do, like start doing it now and sprinkle it in throughout your life.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of people are buying into this concept, which is the buy-in is I'm going to make sacrifices likely to things like my health, my happiness, my relationships, so that I have enough money that I can stop working and stop contributing at some point. And what we're seeing is that a lot of people who are arriving there and it's not what they thought it was going to be. They're disappointed and they have regrets and they can't go back in time and spend their time differently. 20% of them are going back to work. There's this unretirement movement where people are returning to work, not in most cases, not because they need money, but because they missed the contribution and they missed the connection that they had with others while they were there. So I'm calling into question. I think this is potentially a bad idea for a lot of people. It hasn't been around for a long time, and I just want people to. I want to get people's attention in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and get them to think about these things now, so that they can make changes to the way that they're living and won't have the same regrets that a lot of people in their 60s are having.
I knew you were going to say that. It's like the whole point is to not live in regret. There's another good reword, to not regret your life, right? And you in your book, you talk a lot about people creating side hustles or exploring other things that might bring them passion or joy. Is that what you're finding a lot of people, not so much side hustles, is that what you're finding people coming out of retirement is doing work that's fulfilling, or is it just more a matter of being busy again? I think you might even said that we're meant to be creators, or we're meant to do stuff. We're meant to or create or be active. And I think it keeps your brain going. Is that what you're finding when people are coming out of retirement, is doing work that's more fulfilling, or is it just to be around other people?
Well, look, I would say when I first started writing the book in 2017, I started and then put it down for like 5 years. I was using a lot of language like find work you love and find your passion. And we've all heard if you do work, if you find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I think that there's like some downside to that for some people, like the pressure to feel like I have to find this thing that's my calling or my purpose. That I changed the language in a lot of cases from find something you love doing to find something that you don't hate, find something that's not sucking your soul. And I don't think anybody that falls into that category, I don't think they should be doing what they're doing now for any longer than they have to. I don't think they should just, in an irresponsible way, just quit and not have a plan for what they're going to do next. But I would rather, like, if we're talking about side hustles, if we're talking about pivoting, I would rather people do it sooner. I would rather people not feel like they have to stick it out where they are now until they're 60 or 65 and then do something else. Because the reality is, if you're planning to go into something that you think you'll enjoy more, and because of that, you'll do it longer than what maybe your financial plan is suggesting, then what that can give you the data to know that you could leave that great paying crappy job earlier than you were thinking to get a crappier paying job, but one that you'll love, that you won't want to stop doing. And from a financial perspective, it will come out in the wash or maybe even be to your advantage.
I just want to highlight, if I understand correctly, this is very category one, or it's a not typical perspective for a financial advisor.
Yes. Um, can I share an example just to kind of highlight just
Yeah.
how much of a financial impact changing your mindset on this could potentially have for you? So, look, I am preaching more enjoyment, more living, more fulfillment right now, and there's a lot of different ways that can happen. It can show up in the form of you spending more time with your friends, spending more time with your kids if you have kids, your significant other, going to the gym more, taking better care of yourself, having more fun, doing the work to uncover trauma, whatever the case may be. And everybody knows that these are good ideas, right? But a lot of people have not addressed the elephant in the room, which is how am I going to afford to do this? I can't afford to do this. I'm behind the curve. I'm behind the eight ball. So I share a story in my book called A Tale of Two Tonys.
Yeah.
Tony's 45 years old. He makes $150,000 a year, and he has $150,000 saved for retirement. You can change those numbers. I have a calculator on my website that you can make it personal if you want, but the math is going to be basically the same. Tony meets with his financial advisor, and he just picks 65 as his retirement age because that's what everyone else is doing. And his advisor says, you need to save $2,400 a month every single month, adjusted for inflation, for the next 20 years in order to retire. So 2,400 a month is about 30 grand a year. That's 20% of what he's making. And that's a non-starter for most people. Most people hear that and they're like, I'm behind. I need to catch up. I need to blow off family dinners and family vacations and not go on the strip that I want to go on. And they're just really stressed out. So I create this alternate universe that I compare to this movie called Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow. It's two different timelines for Gwyneth Paltrow, the main character in this movie, and based on whether or not she catches a train, and how much her life changes, whether she catches it or she doesn't catch it. So in my alternate universe, I have Tony's wife in between meetings with the financial advisor say, Tony, why do you want to stop at 65? You like what you do. You like the people you do it with. And even if you're not doing this, I can't imagine you sitting around doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're probably going to work till you're 75. So he reaches back out to the advisor and he says, let's make it 75. The advisor comes back and the amount that Tony has to save by working 10 extra years goes down from $2,400 a month to $110 a month. It goes down by 96%. And even if Tony were to say he'll work until he's 70 instead of 75, just 5 extra years, it goes down to $600 a month. It goes down by 75%. And even though this sounds crazy, I'm going to explain really simply why this happens. I have Tony dying at 95 in both scenarios. In the first example, he has 10 less years of working, 10 less years of saving, 10 less years of letting his investments be able to compound, and he needs the money to last for 30 years. In the second scenario, he has 10 additional years of working, 10 additional years of saving, 10 additional years of not touching the money. And then he only needs an amount of money that will last for 20 years. And we've all read these articles and seen these videos about how we should have saved more when we were 22 years old and to
Yeah.
take advantage of compounding interest. And we feel dumb because we didn't do it. But even if we had done it, I mean, hopefully everybody listening here is making more money now than when they were 22. But there's no articles that talk about how we can achieve the same benefit, except significantly more by letting the money just sit in there for a lot longer.
No, but you also you sent an email, it might be in your book. You sent an email recently about how Warren Buffett made 95% of his net worth after
Yeah.
65.
Yep.
I mean, hopefully that could just punctuate, if anything, what you're sharing is that it's not about reaching 65 and then there you can, well, not only just live your life at that point, but you're missing out on a huge wealth creation opportunity past 65 by working longer and hopefully uh, investing longer.
Yeah, and I think maybe you could argue being a little selfish for not sharing your wisdom and your gifts and your experience with the world in a way that would contribute to making this a better place for other people. To answer the reason I shared that story before I answered your question about other
Yeah.
financial advisors is I wanted to highlight the math. And I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been having these conversations with my clients, and I've brought this up to other financial advisors, and most just sort of shun it. Some think it's interesting, but
Interesting.
but I just highlighted for you the how this is not financially incentivizing financial advisors to be having this conversation. Because when I sold my practice in 2019, in hindsight, I left millions of dollars on the table because I've been having this conversation with my clients for 20 years. They've been spending more of their money, spending more of their time with the people that are important to them, giving me less money to invest in their portfolios because I was in the game of just making people have a better life,
Right.
um, using their money to help them have a better life. And look, if every financial advisor tomorrow had this conversation with all of their clients, and all their clients were giving them, $25,000 a month to put into their investments, and now they're all giving them $1,100 a month to put in their investments, then all of a sudden these financial advisors are taking a 95% hit to what they're making on an annual basis. So it's not aligned for them to be leaning into this. I think the way that they maybe should be.
How do you think they're reacting now that you've launched Let's Retire Retirement? I'm curious what your colleagues or peers are saying now.
Yeah, I mean, like some people, it's resonating and it makes sense. I think that there's a lot of financial advisors that are really good with the math side of things and really good at picking investments, and they don't necessarily feel as comfortable having these bigger picture conversations. I mean, look, I've been controversial at times, and I rarely had anybody come into my office with their hand raised, knowing that they didn't want to retire. I was the first one to introduce the idea to them that maybe this was not the right approach for them. And
Yeah.
I would always humor them though. I'd always say, okay, so you want to retire at 65, what are you going to do? And I'd have the couples in my office, and they would look at each other. And a lot of times they would say, we want to travel the world together. And I would say, great. When was the last time you two went out on a date together? And they would look at each other, and very rarely was it like, oh, a week ago. It was longer than that. Or they would say they want to spend a lot of time with their grandkids, and I would say that's amazing. I do too. How often are you home for dinner right now? How
Yeah.
often are you like spending time with your kids? And maybe my favorite, a lot of men will say, I want to play golf, 4 days a week. And I would say,
Sure.
but you're not playing golf now, and you're not going to the gym now, and you just had your hip replaced. And so,
Yeah.
like, I don't know when you think you're going to magically be able to start playing golf, but why don't we figure out a way to get you to start playing some golf now? The more golf you're playing now, the more likely it is you're going to be able to play golf when you're 65.
Yeah, I love this journey, dude. I mean, if anything, I've just seen you really double down on optimizing for having a great life, even more so, whether it's going to concerts or hanging out with Melanie or your kids. In your book, you challenge assumptions about retirement. Which belief around retirement do you think is the most dangerous for people to hold on to, and why?
The buy-in for this is I think that people feel like they need to make sacrifices right now in exchange for a better life in the future. And once you start telling yourself that your life's going to be better in the future than it is now, you've already told yourself subconsciously or otherwise that your life is not as good as it possibly could be. And I feel like I'm in the regret minimization business right now. Like we're seeing a lot of people in their 60s and 70s sort of arrive and they're going back to work and it's not what they thought it was going to be. And some of
Yeah.
these people are reading my book and it's really triggering for them, like they want to double down on, I did this the right way. I did what I was told and it was worth not seeing my kids as often, or having a fractured relationship with my spouse right now because I did what I was told to do, and I have enough money. No one's really talking to the people that are 10, 20, 30 years removed from that. And most people are not giving this a lot of thought. So I'm just hoping to get their attention. And I'm hoping that I can help them realize that maybe playing the money game exclusively, or maybe making that the top priority, isn't the right game to be playing. That our society, I think, expects us and wants us to work our hardest and have our biggest earning years during the time when our kids need us the most. If you're a parent, and like my kids are 15 and 13. My kids are going to be out of the house in 3 and 5 years, respectively. I've said no to 7 of the 10 speaking gigs I've gotten offered in the past couple of months to talk about my book. I'm just being selective about it. And if my macro idea is that the fact that I'm going to be earning more money in my 70s, my 60s, my 70s, my 80s, and that is funding my ability to be spending more time enjoying life, spending time with the people that are important to me, taking better care of myself right now, that at a micro level, I'm doing that with my kids. I'm
Yeah.
waking up every day and I'm solving for how can I spend 1 or 2 hours with each of them in a meaningful way. And it's sponsored by, almost as if like the future version of me is writing the current version of me a sponsorship check. It's sponsored by me knowing that in 5 years, when my youngest is out of the house, sign me up for 60-hour weeks, sign me up for more speaking gigs, sign me
Yeah.
up for more work, more contribution, more all of it.
Yeah.
But for now, as we know from Tim Urban, but when our kids leave the house, and go off to college, we will have spent 93% of the time that we're going to spend with them over the course of our lives. And I don't want to miss any more time of that than I have to.
That's a startling statistic for people to sort of ground themselves, particularly if they're parents. I don't know what the experience is like of being a parent, but I can. My brother has kids, and I can just see how he loves being. You love being a dad, don't you?
Oh, I love it, man. It's amazing.
Yeah, my brother loves being a dad, and you do it so well.
Well, you know where it does apply to you, man. The reverse of that, which is like 7%, 5% left with your parents. We can flip it, and it also applies to, okay, my mom doesn't live in the same state as me. I see her, 3 times a year. She's 75. I mean, how many more times am I going to see my mom?
Yeah, and when I did that math, it was like a few years ago, and I did that math. I found myself like I make the same way we make or the same way that I make opportunities to go to events or masterminds or even just fun times with friends. I account for a few trips, not just hanging out with them in their house or anything like that, but a few trips where I take my parents to where they want to go.
Amazing.
It's almost because they weren't even given. I mean, they probably follow in the old paradigm of what retirement is supposed to be. But I'm curious just on that because it brought up something as you were saying it. Are you noticing any differences in how, from a generation perspective, how people are viewing retirement? So from the millennials, the Gen X's, the Gen Ys, all the different generations, are you noticing differences that shifting with the times?
I think so. Like, I think that our generation and younger is more open to this idea, but it's also important to know that the concept of retirement is a relatively new idea. It's first sort of arrived in 1889 in Germany. The chancellor at the time, Otto von Bismarck, was putting together the first ever social plan for people who were going to be leaving the workforce, and
I didn't know that. That's
they,
fascinating.
they yeah, they picked the age of 65. Why do you think they picked the age of 65?
Well, because at that time, that's I think people didn't live past 65, right?
That was the age people were expected to live until.
I live
Right. So
until,
it was
right.
literally like the age that people were supposed to die was going to be the age that they could start getting a benefit. Fast forward, to the, 1930s with FDR putting together the Social Security Act, and they picked 65 at that time when life expectancy was, 70, 71. And so even if you were around then and you were going to have a retirement plan, which they didn't have retirement plans like 401ks at that time, it was really like you would get a third of your income from Social Security, like in 1950, a third of your income from a pension plan, which don't really exist anymore. And you only had to come up with a third of your income, and it only had to last you for like 6 or 7 years. And fast forward to now, and we're living a lot longer. Life expectancy is up around 80, and it goes into the mid to high 80s if you make it to 65. And yet the retirement age really hasn't changed. People still identify 65 as the number that they want to retire. And look, we weren't, in my opinion, we were not put on this earth to do work that that we don't enjoy doing for 30 years to earn the right to sit around and not do anything at all after that for another 30 years.
Preach, 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 Derek. Okay, so I do want to touch upon a couple more things and then we'll land this plane here. So let's talk about AI. In your book, you talk about the World Economic Forum have named many different skills, including analytical thinking, creative thinking, resilience, among others, as I guess characteristics or traits that people are going to still have, or they're not going to be replaced with AI. But what if there's this question of, I don't know, I can, for some people who are trying to figure out like, what work can I do if they fear or they feel like AI is replicating or eliminating their jobs?
I get that. And I also get, what if I get sick? What if I get a disease? And I think that like, if we end up in a situation that is like really bad or unfortunate for us, I mean, I don't think we're going to feel better that we worked really hard to, just be able to not run out of money a little bit earlier than we were going to run out of money anyways. And I'm betting on humans, like we've always been resilient. AI is going to take a lot of jobs. I think it's going to take a lot of jobs that people don't necessarily love doing. Think about all the jobs that exist right now that didn't exist 10 years ago, with the shared economy, with meal delivery service, like so many things. And I suggest in the book that I think that like a good job would be, I never really had a granddad, and my boys haven't really had a granddad experience just because my dad got dementia when they were 3 and 1, and my wife's father's not really in the picture. And so I'm hoping to like one of my dreams is that I have like an opportunity to be like an amazing grandfather one day. So that's in part where this is coming from. But like rent a granddad, you pair up like older men and women, rent a grandmom, rent a granddad at nursing homes that are kind of lonely with kids who don't have grandparents, supervised, of course, and they get to share their stories, and it's kind of like a win-win for everybody. I think that there's going to be
do that, right? I think they currently do that. Is there I think
that's
there's some
amazing
places,
if they do. Yeah, I don't know about that.
Someone told me about this concept where they pair them up. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Gary Vee mentioned recently that there's like an app, or he thinks there's going to be an app where you can pay somebody like $20 to go on a 30-minute walk with you and talk about whatever you want to talk about. I just think that there's going to be a lot of new jobs. I think personal chefs, for example, I think that it's very possible that like somebody that is really good at cooking, that maybe they're a data inputter right now for a company, and AI is going to take their job in a few years, that they could be making $100,000 cooking dinner for 5 families in their neighborhood, like 4 days a week. Right. So I think that just committing to learning, committing to staying sharp, committing to developing new skills or revisiting skills that maybe you had when you were a kid or when you were younger that you kind of put off to the side for a little bit. I think that as long as we feel like we're waking up every day and we want to learn and we want to find ways to contribute, that's often going to be tied to us getting some money in exchange for, sharing those skills and gifts with the world.
I actually learned this from a mutual friend. Actually, you introduced me to him, our buddy Jerry, who told me once that money is a story of value. And if you just master the art of sharing your value, then you never have to worry about money again.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
How are people going to make money if AI is going to eliminate their jobs? Is find another way to add value. Also, from a branding perspective, I'm really keen on talking a lot about the brands of tomorrow, the ones that are going to incorporate or include or have a big part of their offering delivering a human-to-human experience. If anything, that's going to be even more precious because more things are becoming automated and AI-ified. I wanted to shift gears. So I asked you earlier, but let's, for the record here, is like, in your mind, what does it mean to be a category of one brand?
I think that for me, that there's nothing more correlated with true freedom than not caring about what the majority of people think about you.
Yeah.
And I think it's worthwhile to pursue that. I know we talked about it earlier, but I
Yeah,
just think that, like, whether it's, politics or geopolitical activity, that everybody seems to be like picking their side. And I think a lot of it has to do with they're afraid of what people are going to think about them if they deviate from that. Like, I consider myself, I made up the name the far middle, where I have a really hard time, you know, accepting a lot of what's happening on in a lot of situations on either side of the table. And I just like want to be able to think and feel for myself. And I think the reason why more people are not speaking up, the reason why more people are not sharing their views is because they're afraid that they're going to alienate people. They're afraid that they're going to lose friends. And I think it's worthwhile to go out and, to your point, meet more people, because the more people you know, the more people you have friends with, the more people that you're showing up to spend time with, the more flexibility you have to be yourself. Like, I think if
yeah,
you are from a small town in the Midwest and your four best friends are the same four people that you went to high school with, and there's no one else in your town, then you might have to like dance a little bit more than you want to. You might have to
sure.
stray from the authentic version of you more than you want to. But if you've got a nice collection of humans that you like spending time with and like hanging out with, then you can afford to lean into being you a little bit more. And so I think that, like, that connection piece that you mentioned contributes to that. And I think that for me, I'm not afraid to share how I feel about a lot of things, mainly because if somebody doesn't want to associate with me anymore because I have an opinion about something, then that's okay. And I'm glad we found that out now instead of 20 years from now when I was going to be really relying on you to help me with something.
That's fascinating. So I often say, you tell me if you vibe with this, but the way that I'm kind of viewing category one brands and what I'm discovering is they're so bold or so unique or so radically authentic that they first love themselves, particularly like personal
Mm.
brands. But you can apply this to business brands, but they so are radically authentic that they just love who they are and they know who they are. They know their values and they're going to attract other people who are aligned with those values. That doesn't necessarily mean, because you said this a couple times now, it's not even so much like you don't care what people think. It's not that you don't care about people, but when you come from the context of living your life worrying about what people think about you, you create a different reality or you create a different experience of the world versus you creating who you are. And you may agree with some people, may agree with you, people are not going to agree with you, and that's
Yep.
okay. But it's not compromising who you are.
I think part of what contributed to my midlife crisis was I had lived my life in a way that I got really good at figuring out what to do to make people like me. And so much so that when I started to say, this isn't me, this is not the version of me that's been showing up, and I started to change and be more of myself, I had a number of friendships that sizzled and faded a bit. I lost a few
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
and that's not always easy either. Like, I think that we see the memes on social media that say when you grow, you're gonna outgrow people, and that's just part of it. Like, not everyone's gonna do the work that you're gonna do, and it's got this bravado sort of feel to it. But there's also like a little bit of sadness in my experience. Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, I really like hanging out with this guy. He doesn't like really the version of me anymore that's currently showing up. And I would love to spend more time with him, but I also don't want to go back. And it's not his fault that I was presenting as a less than authentic version of me. And so I had to unwind a lot of that. But again, I think it's better than the other scenario where you just end up with a lot of people that are spending time and hanging out with you based on like a fake version of you that's
Time,
showing up. There's a
maybe a fake version, or even sometimes even time, like I was explaining earlier, just because you've known each other for a long period of time doesn't necessarily mean that you might be you're meant to gel now.
Think about it. I mean, you do a lot of work on yourself, you're going to be a different person, and it's going to require. You're going to realize you got like a lot of furniture in your house that doesn't go together, and you got to do some rearranging and make some donations, and maybe even like clear space to bring in some new furniture along the way. There's a movie called Pig with Nicolas Cage. The movie's pretty good, but it's got the very best scene of any movie. It's my number one favorite movie scene of all time. Go to YouTube and Google like chef scene from the Pig. It's too long to
Okay.
get into right now, but it is like just a breathtaking, um, you know, goosebump forming conversation about just how misaligned some people are, just related to that. There's a really great book called The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. Have you read that book?
Yes, I have. I have a copy right behind me. See it.
So it's all about like how we're meant to have like a certain purpose in life. And there's a story about a priest in that book who is really unhappy. He's really miserable. He's really depressed. And he was being groomed for it since he was a kid. And he did some reflection and ended up realizing that he actually wanted to be a church music composer. He was supposed to be playing the organ. He was literally in the right building, but in the wrong role, and living his life. And we can all, I think, convince ourselves that we are close to what we want to be doing without
Yeah.
actually being able to do what we actually want to do.
All right, Derek, if you had to give a title to the next chapter of your life or the next season of your life or even your next book, what would that be?
I think maybe reaping the rewards would be the next title, the next chapter for me. So there is a story in the Bible. I'm not going to get all religious here, but there's a story in the Bible called the parable of the sower. And the parable of the sower, it uses a seed as being synonymous with connection to God or connection with the highest version of you. And in the first story, a seed falls down from the sky, lands on a pavement, a bird swoops in, eats it, flies away, nothing happens. Second seed falls down, lands in a crack, starts to sprout, but has nothing to take root on, so nothing happens. Third seed falls down, lands in a thorn bush, takes root, but then gets choked out by all the weeds. Fourth and final seed falls down, lands in fertile soil, and produces 100-fold what was intended. That's the exact language used in the story. And so, what I love about this story are a couple of things. One is it doesn't work the majority of the time. Having that pure connection to you, void of the coping mechanisms, the addictions, the stress, the trauma, all of that. And it never does what it's supposed to do. It never, in this story, it never produces the amount that you would expect. It either doesn't work or it produces an amount beyond your wildest dreams. So for me, I have been in and out of seasons of um, cultivating fertile soil. Like I'm coming off surgery right now. We're dealing with a family health issue right now. So it's not going exactly the way that I want to be doing. But for me, I'm in a season where it's less about goals for me and more about habits. I'm solving for waking up in the morning and feeling amazing, eating the right way, working out, meditating, not having stress. And I want to show up to be as pure as possible and see what I can do with that, see what God can do with that, because I feel like I've accomplished quite a bit and I have a lot of amazing things um, to show for maybe like living my life in a way that wasn't fully authentic. So I don't really have a lot of regrets, but I'm also excited to see what this as close to the pure version of me as I've ever been, what I'm capable of producing and how I'm capable of showing up in the world.
Well said, brother. I really another reword, by the way. So well said. I know we touched briefly on. I didn't mention too much about Cadre, amazing network, where people unnetwork, really solid community of entrepreneurs, business owners, and epic humans. We talked a little bit about your book, Let's Retire Retirement. I really wanted to dive into that, but mostly I wanted people to connect with you because to me, you're in your own category, dude. I just have a lot of reverence and respect for who you are.
Okay.
Yeah, and I like your strong point of view. I really gravitate towards people who, what's the word? Don't give a fuck. Don't give a fuck. I don't know why I'm not tracking it, but
I say
basically,
and the not giving a F dojo is where I've been.
yeah, that's similar. That's exactly like when I wrote the book, Your Brand Should Be Gay, even if you're not. I knew that I was going to have a very similar reaction, or it's from the stance of not really giving a fuck what people think about. And it doesn't mean that I don't care about people. I love the way you frame this. It's just that I'm just doing me and I'm going to attract the people who resonate with that. And if it offends people for whatever reason, then bye. See you
Yeah.
later. Anyway, so if people want to find out more about you, your book, you kind of seeded it in there earlier, but this really unique calculator that you can use. Where can people find you?
Yeah, my website's the best place to go, derekcoburn.com. There's links for where you can buy the book. You can grab like a PDF workbook if you're going to read the book to go along with it. I mean, there's a ton that we didn't cover in the book, and if we piqued your interest, I think you might really enjoy it. But look, I don't really have anything to sell right now. I'm in a place where I can like just pour into people and do my best to give back. I choose to spend barely any time engaging in politics and engaging in things that I feel like are really out of my control, and instead
Yeah.
focus on what I do have control over. And I feel like, based on all of the people that have reached out to tell me that my book has changed their life, or something that I've written, I'm writing and I'm getting better as a writer. I'm a better writer now than when I turned in the manuscript for my most recent book, and I'm still writing. And I just would love to find people that feel like that maybe the way that they're doing things now is not the best way, and I can share my ideas, my wisdom, my experience, and the experience of people that I know and have worked with in a way that might, again, lead them to having significantly less regrets when they are older.
See what you did there. I do want to punctuate that a little bit because I think that's what's admirable about you, Derek, is for your community, you don't need to have a certain amount of members in order to, fund your life. You don't need
Right.
to make a lot of money on this book in order. You are in this season, and I feel like you and I are similar. It's like in this second mountain season where you're just here to be of service, to live the best life that you want to live, and along the way, inspire other people to do the same, to live life now, to retirement, and to to follow their heart and follow their joy. So it's a real honor and pleasure to call you a friend. The book is starting to change my life because I'm not completely done with it, but you, my friend, have changed my life, and so I want to thank
Mm.
you for that.
I feel the same way
All
about you,
right.
man. So grateful for your friendship and all the great times we've had together, and all the great times that have yet to come.
All right, well, you guys, so go check out Derek's book. We'll put all the links in the show notes for you to check it out. But if you're someone who wants to really live life now and learn from a master in this realm of retirement, please go check out his book, Derek Coburn. Until the next time, cheers. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you gathered at least one nugget that you can take into your life today. To dive deeper into my work, please visit reperez.com. That's reperez.com. It's a central hub to explore how to work one-on-one with me, to connect with me on Instagram or social media, or you can check out my new book, Your Brand Should Be Gay Even If You're Not, or you can inquire about booking me to speak to your audiences about the power of building a category of one brand, your unique gifts and your unique superpowers. Lean into what sets you apart, and I'll see you next week.